Well, this is going to be great.
Welcome to the White House Pod with David A.R. White.
I'm gonna finish what I started.
It's not easy, but it's simple. Dylan, you're about to be wowed by a psychologist and a New York Times bestselling author.
I've always wanted that.
Dr. Kevin Leman is a psychologist and New York Times bestselling author of more than 52 books. I actually think it's in the 70s now, and he is dealing with topics that range from raising children and birth order to business and to marriage. I mean, my gosh, just, you know what? He's been on every major TV show, from The View, Barbara Walters Today, Oprah, CBS's earliest show, Regis Philbin, 100. Good Morning America. Is there anything that this guy has not been on? Dr. Kevin Leman, ladies and gentlemen. Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Are we coming from Arizona? Is that where we're at?
Yes, I live in New York in the summer, but hang out in Tucson, Arizona most of the time.
Is it hot there or kind of cool, perfect temp right now there?
It's sort of cool. I think it's just about 60 degrees today. We've had a little cool weather.
Are you from there originally?
No, I grew up in Buffalo, went to school in Chicago, got thrown out when I was 19. Thanks for asking. Came down to Tucson, Arizona, got a job as a janitor, making $195 a month. Met my wife in the men's room of a hospital. If you can top that, I'm all ears.
Wait, what? How?
Well, I was a janitor. She was a nurse's aide. I had seen this good-looking chick in the hospital, and one day she came in, helping some little old guy go potty in a walker.
That wasn't you, right?
And that's how we met.
Wait, okay, so, and you've been together for how many years?
57 in a row. Yeah, we've got 5 kids and 4 grandkids, and yeah, we've been happily married. I asked her recently, I said, are we happily married? And she just said, you're very happily married. That was the end of the conversation, I recall.
How did you, okay, so you have had, you've written a lot of books, right? And obviously the birth order book is probably maybe most people know you from. But when did we start writing? Like, was it easy? You were a psychologist first, I take it?
Yeah, I was, but I never wanted to write a book. I never wanted to be a speaker.
You certainly didn't want to be on the White House Dare to Dream podcast.
I never dreamed of it. Here I am. I mean, I've hit utopia right there. I'm in the twilight of a mediocre career, to tell you the truth.
New York Times bestselling author, been on every show, 70-some books.
Well, I've written books on leadership. I wrote a book called The Way of the Shepherd, which you know something about the book business, I know. It's been in hardback for 21 years, which says something. Usually a book goes into paperback after a year, but it's sold well over 300,000 copies in hardback and continues to sell to this day. So The Way of the Shepherd is sort of the big picture of leadership. And I followed it up with sort of an on-hands guide to be a leader. It's for wannabes or CEOs. I do a lot of CEO speaking to YPO groups and groups like that. And people seem to like what I have to say. I try to keep life simple. I'm not that bright, but I have some pretty good common sense and pretty good leadership skills myself, I found out.
Were you, how old were you when you wrote your first book?
Let's see, I got to do some figuring here. I think I was 35 or so.
And what led to that?
Well, I was teaching at the University of Arizona. I was also a dean of students there for 10 years. It's funny, a dean of students threw me out in Chicago, and 10 years later, I was a dean of students. But people in my classes, I mean, they really enjoyed it because I taught graduate level courses in counseling psychology. I showed people how to work with people. And so the classes were really well attended, and people kept saying to me, you ought to write a book. Well, I got news for you. I graduated 4th of ballot in my class in high school. My high school counselor said to me once, Leman, with your grades and your record in our school, I couldn't get you admitted to reform school. So I was not a candidate to write a book. I didn't even know what a book proposal was, but I put together some thoughts and sent it out to some publishers, and I was amazed that a couple of them wanted to publish it, and nothing breeds success like success. So I wrote a book called Sex Begins in the Kitchen, which people liked.
It's a good title.
The subtitle was Because There's Company in the Living Room. I mean, I just try to connect with people, David, on a simple, when I'm at Good Morning America or Fox and Friends, I've done them since 2007. My litmus test is, can I get the lighting guy and the audio guy, the camera people to laugh? And if I hear them laughing in the background, then I know I'm connecting with people. And I just try to, in this case, teach them the simple process of becoming a leader. It's not rocket science.
Is it more on couples, or leadership side? Because obviously it seems like it's two different sides, because you've written a lot of books about, having a successful relationship, marriage.
I wrote a book called Sheet Music, which is a mega bestseller about sex. But leadership, I mean, yeah, you got to be a leader if you're married. I mean, you got to understand a couple of things about women. They're weird.
Thank you, Dylan. That's what I've been saying.
Dogs.
I'm sorry.
They like dogs. When your wife says, "I'll be a few minutes," I'm here to tell you, David, that's a lie. So leadership is always personal, David. That's the whole point. The 3 R's in leadership are relationship, relationship, relationship. And your yes has to be yes, your no has to be no. You've got to be visible. You got to serve those you know and know those you serve. That's sort of a basic. I talked with a young CEO woman the other day. I said, "What do you do when someone in your organization does really well?" And she said, "Well, I send them an email." I said, "That is the second dumbest thing you could possibly do. Who the heck wants another email?" I mean, the dumbest thing would be ignore it completely. But, the power of the personal note, the phone call, "I'm taking you to lunch. I got to tell you, eyeball to eyeball, you knocked it out of the park in that project." And then as a leader, you always got to be talking to your people. You got to be tuning into them, and you got to ask for their help. So I've done a lot of YPO groups, professional leadership groups, and they seem to like me. So I continue to do that.
How what do you like more? Do you do relationship conferences as well?
Oh yeah, I do marriage conferences. Yeah.
Well, you're founder and president of the Couples of Promise.
Yeah.
That's certainly to help people stay married. Is it a faith-based thing at all, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah. God changed my life. I mean, I was a heathen. I mean, I was, I was a punk. I had the greasy hair. I smoked my cigarettes. I walk cool, talk cool. And I'll tell you the real story. I mean, I met my wife, and I mean, I fell in love with her. If you saw a picture of my wife, you'd say, "I can't believe that's your wife. She's old and she's still gorgeous." But we started dating about 3 months, and she pops the question, and she said to me, she said, "Would you like to go to church with me?" And David, I remember thinking, holy, I'll use another term, crap. She's one of them.
How old are you at this time?
I was 20.
Okay, young.
So I lied through my teeth. I said, "Yeah, I was just thinking of going to church." And I remember sitting in her church on a Sunday morning and thinking, no chick is worth this. So the funny part was, I mean, this is crazy, but this is how my life changed in reality. Then she wanted me to go back at night. Okay. I already been there in the morning, David.
That same day, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was at night, this pastor was talking about the guy who Jesus was in his head, but he didn't know who he was in his heart. Oh, my sweet mother, God bless her, she dragged me to church as a kid. I knew all those Bible stories. I just had any use for it whatsoever. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I walked out. really a new person. I said, I don't know what this is all about, but okay, let's go. And so I was I was just taking night school at the time and barely passing that. And long story short, I went back to school full time. Again, I was a janitor, and I became a dean's list student the very first semester. I never looked back.
Hmm.
So the rest is history, as they say. So God did change my life. There are no two ways about it. I did a 180, and He has blessed us in about every conceivable way you could imagine. I mean, for a kid that shouldn't have got out of high school, New York Times bestseller. How do you make things up like that?
When did you decide I want to become a psychologist? And or did you have it inside of you early? Our podcast is called Dare to Dream. Did you have it inside of you early to be a best-selling author or even to be an author?
Yeah, well, again, I didn't ever want to be an author, but when I started getting great grades in school, in fact, this is a visual, but I remember looking at my report card and saying my name out loud, Kevin Leman. And I said, those are my grades. And I got all A's and a B. I got on the dean's list. Well, I was on a lot of dean's lists before that, trust me. And they weren't good dean's lists. And I remember thinking, well, maybe I could graduate from college. But it was when I was teaching at the university, and I thought, well, maybe I'd work with kids, maybe college students, maybe families. And I basically, as a psychologist, work with families and kids. Um, and I was very successful in working with people behind closed door. People would come in and think they'd see me for 6 months or a year. I'd set them straight real quick because I got news for you, David. You learned to be the person you are today from your mother, your father, or any siblings you had. So the good news is, if you've learned your behavior, can you unlearn it? So I was very um, directive with people, and I sort of re-educated people to life and the choices you make, and I was very successful at that.
I've heard a lot about the birth order. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, firstborns rule. They're the lab rat of the family. If you're a firstborn, your parents practice on you. This ought to sound familiar. I don't care what he did. I don't care what she did. You are the oldest. I expect more to you, young woman or young man. So, they win all the prizes. I mean, Presidents of the United States, Jimmy Carter, Lyndon Johnson, Bush, the younger one, Clinton, Obama, their only children. They had a step sibling. Uh, Trump is a functional firstborn. There's an 8-year gap between himself and his older brother, who's deceased. Who'd I miss? Biden, firstborn. I mean, firstborns rule everything. They're the presidents of PTA down the street. They run things. Middle children, well, no one cares about the middle children. Let's go to the youngest child. No, actually, middle children, I tell middle children they're the peanut butter and jelly of the sandwich. And youngest children, name a comedian. I mean, I like all the old comedians, Billy Crystal, Eddie Murphy, Jim Carrey, Martin Short, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, Ellen, Whoopi. They're all babies of the family. The father of comedy, Charlie Chaplin, was a baby. I'm a youngest, as you could probably surmise. I had a sister who was perfect, a brother who was near perfect, and then me. And so I became the best at being the worst. So leaders can come from any position in the family. I got to know Herb Kelleher very well, who was the chairman of the board and CEO at Southwest Airlines. If you ever flew Southwest, I'm here to tell you had fun on that flight. But one of the reasons you had fun on the flight is he was the baby of the family, youngest of 4 brothers, insisted that airline was fun. And one of his favorite quotes that I loved was, we're in the service business. It's incidental that we also fly airplanes.
Wow, it's a good quote.
So middle children are the peanut butter and jelly of the sandwich. They go in marriage. They go with about anybody. It's like going down to the blood bank and find the universal donor. But if you're a leader, if you want to get an edge, you better know who you're leading. You can't lead people you don't know, quite frankly, David. At least not very well. So, you wouldn't walk up to someone and say, "Hey, David, what's your birth order?" I mean, they're going to put you in in silent. But you glean information from people. I tell a story about how I talked my way into Disney World for 9 free tickets. I mean, it took me 20 minutes. I planned on 10. But that is a skill that many of us as babies of the family have. I mean, I could sell dead rats for a living as well as books. We're a product of our environment. I mean, I grew up poor. My dad, he had an 8th grade education. My mother was a nurse. My sister was the stereotypical perfectionist. She put newspaper under the cuckoo clock, which I could never understand. And my brother was the star quarterback, and good looking and all that. And again, then there was me. So I became the class clown and the goofball, and a teacher helped change my whole life. In April of my senior year, she pulled me aside and said, Kevin, do you think you could ever use those skills you have for something positive in life? And that was the first time a teacher ever said I had skills. But God bless her. She tutored me, or I wouldn't have graduated from high school.
Did you ever want to do stand-up comedy?
I would be lying if I told you I didn't, because there was a time years ago when I was almost on the Johnny Carson show. And I think one of my secret wishes would be to walk out there and stand on that little star and do 6 minutes on the enemy, for example. That would be our children, or marriage, or almost anything. I mean, I don't do a lot of things in life well, but I can speak and I can make people laugh. But it's not just laughter. I like to teach people about life and how to succeed in life. In fact, Be a Great Leader by Friday could be titled How to Succeed in Life, because it's all about relationships.
When you go out to speak, do you speak often out? I mean,
Yes.
I know you have conferences, but do you still go out very often?
Oh yeah, I just did a 4-day event in Phoenix. I just got an invitation to speak to the Western Association of Orthopedic Surgeons out in Hawaii. Years ago, I spoke to my beloved Buffalo Bills.
My question is this, because you go on these shows, right? You're definitely being you're on every major show. You go out to all kinds of different people to speak. Do you find yourself putting your comedy in the I mean, it sounds like you do. We're on a podcast and you're very funny. Do you put your comedy within the whatever it is that you're speaking about?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I go to churches, I point out one of the funniest things that a guy named Paul said. I never caught his last name, but he said, "The two shall become one." I thought that's really funny because, one, I mean, women are weird. They hug anything that moves. They use 3.5 times the number of words that we use in a given day. And most of us as men, I mean, younger men are a little different these days, but most men hate their wives' questions. We just hate them. And women say, well, if I wouldn't ask my husband a question, I'd never learn anything. And I said, no, that's absolutely wrong. If you want to get a man to talk, ask for his opinion. He'll talk your ear off.
It's true.
I'm not saying his opinion's right. I'm just saying you want a man to talk. Yeah. Or touch him. One lady told me once, David, you'll love this. She said, I tried that. Next thing I knew, I was looking at the ceiling. And I said, enjoy.
Dr. Leman, I there's not enough time on these podcasts because they keep us to a short leash on them for people.
We were supposed to talk about the book, I think.
Yeah. So, which book are we talking about? I have so many here. Is there a new one that's out right now?
Yeah, that'll Be a Great Leader by Friday.
Oh,
but people should really read The Way the Shepherd too. It's a great little book. But if we have a minute, I'll tell you a quick story.
For sure. Go.
About one of my favorite people in life was John Wooden, the former coach at UCLA, who won 10 national championships. But, you know, Bill Walton was his star back in the Vietnam War years. And Bill brought his bike into Pauley Pavilion to put it in the locker room so it wouldn't be ripped off. And he walked by Coach on the way in, and Coach said, "Bill, time for a haircut." And so Bill put his bike away and then came back and said, "Coach, I got to talk to you." He said, "My hair is a statement, and you told us to be people of convictions and stick to your convictions. And my long hair is just my view of the Vietnam War and everything that's going on in our government. And, you need to just respect the fact." He says, "Bill, I do respect the fact that you stick to your convictions. I think that's really good for you to do that. And, but I got to tell you, Bill, we're going to miss you." And see, a leader, your yes has to be yes, your no needs to be no. You have to be authentic, you got to be real, but we all have to deal with rules. Rules without relationship lead to rebellion, I'd point out. And there's a lot of different kind of leaders. There's the authoritarian and the permissives, and those guys are losers. They're never going to do well as leaders. But if you're authoritative, then you have a chance to really impact people's lives. But you have to have a relationship. It's just not the rule. So, so people who want to be a leader, or people who are CEOs or CFOs, they can read my books, and I think they'll really like them. They're very practical. They're spot on. I read my reviews. People like them. So,
What publisher are we with these days? Who's putting the books out?
Broad Street. And I sort of thought I was done with COVID and everything, and then they came along and they gave me a 4-book contract. So, Be a Great Leader by Friday. I did a book called Be a Great Teacher by Friday. I have 8 charter schools, 2 in Colorado and 6 in Arizona, called Leman Academy of Excellence.
Oh, wow.
I wish my high school teachers were alive to see that. They would fall over and die. They wouldn't believe it. But yeah. I was at a reading group in 1st grade with a kid who ate paste. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember thinking, I know I don't belong in this group.
All right, so where do people? You can pick up your books anywhere, I'm sure. But where do you like to direct people to? Your website or to the?
Well, right now, go to Amazon. The books are on sale, quite frankly. Christian bookstores would have them, Barnes and Noble, all your big remaining bookstores. They're perishing left and right. But people like my books. If you don't like it, somebody told me they're great kindling on a cold winter evening. So take your choice.
Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. And
hey, my pleasure. Let's do it again sometime.
I would like that. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. And make it a great day.